right. Welcome everyone to the Martinus Way podcast, the very first episode. How exciting. My name's Craig Boothroyd. I'm the host, the Martinus' very own Joe Rogan, a rip-off version at least. And the idea behind this podcast is something that has been swimming around in my head for a long time. In fact, the idea came up in this very room that we were in Treven's office, sitting around having beers on a Friday afternoon and having great conversations about the company and saying some of this should be recorded. We should get this out because there's great learnings. So the idea of running a podcast came to fruition, and today is Are You OK Day, and our very first episode is called Building Minds. So it's a very aptly named episode and a great cause as well for us to focus on in our first session. I just want to give you a brief overview of the Martinus Way podcast. There's a couple of things I just want to get off straight away. There's 5 reasons that I started this. One is I want to get out to the company inside perspectives. So start interviewing the awesome people that work here and go behind the scenes of Martinus. I want to discuss innovative practices, the way we do things, understand our company principles, how they came about, how we use them, discuss lessons and insights into things that people may have learned along the way, as well as, most importantly, celebrating our people. So that's the idea behind this podcast. And today I've got 2 very special guests with me. I've got Jared Big Head Woodford, our head of safety, and Russell Cutsman Cutsy, our general superintendent. Welcome, gentlemen.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having us.
Are You OK Day is a significant day on our calendar. And Are You OK Day is a national day of action when we remind people that every day is the day to ask, are you okay? And start a meaningful conversation whenever they spot the signs that someone, that you care about, because people we work with, we care about. It doesn't just have to be, at work. They might be struggling with life. And this year's theme is I'm here to hear. So really centered around that listening piece and connecting with somebody on that level. Throughout the podcast, we'll go through what that actually means and stuff, but I wanted to get these guys to talk before I keep going. So how about we introduce ourselves? Cutsy.
Yeah, Russell Cutts, very proud Martinus man, General Superintendent of a project we're currently doing in Western Sydney. So been with Martinus for 10 years, or going on 10 years now.
How long you been in rail, Cutsy?
Almost 20 years.
Yeah, you look it.
So just shy of 20 years.
Cutsy, well regarded in the company, very well regarded.
Cheers, mate.
Woody, what about you, mate?
Yeah, Craig, I've been with Martinus 3 years this month. Prior to joining Martinus, I come from a law enforcement and a regulatory background. Joined the cops as a 20-year-old, and then did just 11 years there, and then moved on into the rail safety regulator for 8 years, and before I landed here.
Oof.
Mate, and I'm a referee. No, I'm not.
do you like yourself? Hey, do you want to... Actually, that reminds me, we were in the cops around the same time.
Yeah.
I was at Bankstown, you were at Campsie?
Auburn. Yeah.
What's that story around the safety? The safety
mate, this isn't
story.
what we're here for. This is strike 2.
How about you share it, or I will?
Mate, I guess it paved the way for my move into safety anyway. But very long story short, I can't believe this. Very long story short, 6 months out, a kid that grew up in the Shire, between the Shire and Dubbo, and I landed at Auburn. And I thought, what is this? It blew me away. Anyway, 6 months in, morning muster, the local area superintendent was copping a bit of heat politically in terms of visibility with his police force out in the area. And he made a call, whenever you're not responding to jobs, I want you out, I want your high-vis vests on, I want your proactive policing, down the shops, knocking on doors, whatever you need to do. So halfway through the day, a call came out and there was a siege. There was it was a domestic that turned into a siege, and a gentleman was holding his wife hostage, and there was firearms and everything in place. And I was one of the first, everything turned out okay. Maybe not for me. I was one of the first cars off. Anyway, the call came out over the radio. Everyone put their vests on now. Everyone put their vests on. I thought, oh, shit. And my mind triggered back to the morning muster. So as I've reached for our high-vis vest and stood out the front of this siege, I've heard that, what the hell is that bloke doing? And obviously putting on the wrong vest.
Safety vest instead of a bulletproof vest. Well done.
Yeah,
well
so
done.
paved the move into safety. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, mate. I would have painted that in a lot worse from what I heard.
Yeah. Oh.
All right. So, Are You OK Day, gentlemen? Significant day. And, with your experience in the industry, 20 years in the industry, Woody being in the policing and the rail regulator and now at Martinus, what are some of the things that you've seen in the workplace, especially, in, say, construction? Is there still a stigma associated to mental health for our workers or in society?
Yeah, I believe there is. I really do. We are tough guys that do a tough job. Ladies as well that are out there. There's a lot of initiatives. I think they're great. I think particularly Martinus drives that culture very well of looking after each other and stuff like that. But I think it's just still the not just the construction industry boots, but it's the male.
Yeah.
It's males that don't talk.
Yep.
So I think it is a tough industry.
Still think there's a stigma associated.
I still do, yeah.
There's perceived toughness, right, in our industry, and that's for our blokes and women, right? Because it's tough, mate. Some of those projects that we work on, it's a tough place for our women to be working as well. What about you, Woody?
Yeah, look, Cutsy touched on the initiatives and the programs, and I guess the three of us sitting here are blessed to know what programs we have in place, and we know the abundance of support and everything. But across the three industries you mentioned I've been involved in, I don't see many, well, and I might be a bit unaware, I'm not sure, but I don't see a lot of people tapping into those support services, and they're there. And that might be a case of, we've talked about awareness before, but is it actually knowing how to use those resources? I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it's interesting because, with Are You OK Day, the whole premise around it is to ask, are you okay? How are you going?
Yeah.
So just that connection piece, because often you'll hear that people may not know what resources to access and everything else, but may not be ready to do that as well. They just need an ear to lean on, right?
Yeah.
So there's an opportunity for us to make sure we keep this conversation going.
Yeah.
If I was, again, thinking back over the years that you two have been involved in the industries that you've been involved in, are you happy to share some personal experiences? Maybe something that you guys have been through, strategies that you've employed, things that you've seen work for you or not work for you?
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
What about you, Woody? Do you mind if I start with you?
Yeah. No, look, I've never really, when we spoke about kicking this off, and I've never really thought about telling my story for fear of not wanting to burden other people, but as you know, we did Rail Safety Week the other week, and we were lucky to tap into two of our own internal employees who had suffered significant workplace incidents. But they didn't even hesitate once to get out there and help our team. And I think that's sort of an obligation I now have in regards to this mental health space, just talking about the battle that I had there for a while, what worked for me, what didn't work for me, the impact it on my family, and the crosses I still bear to this day. But by no means am I a mental health professional. It'd just be a case of, more than happy to talk about some of the things that pretty much rocked my world. And if it wasn't for certain things in place, I dare say I might not be here today.
Yeah, wow.
So, but more than happy to.
Let's come back to that. What about you, Cutsy? How's your experience been?
It's 4-on-1s in mining camps, isolated, obviously away from families. I've seen it firsthand. Yeah. Again, tough industry to be in, where there is that stigma. Mm-hmm. I've also seen the positives. Yeah. I've seen the teams come together and really support each other, knowing that times are tough. Family. Yeah. Almost. I'm pretty blessed, obviously, here at Martinus, and I put my own strategies in place. But one thing I don't do is assume that people are okay just because they're putting that out there. So I think that's the biggest one. You got to be aware of them signs. Yeah. Yeah. You've got to look for them.
Absolutely. So what happened? What happened for you? If you're happy to go there.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I may get emotional because I've never really spoke in depth about this, and it sort of gets me when I talk about, I say crosses I still bear, that just looking back at the person I was through those dark times and how it impacted on my wife and how I shut her out. Yeah. When in turn, when I've come out the other side, mate, she was the biggest support I ever had. Yeah. It was huge. Look,
you safe place too.
Yeah,
right? We got you. Right?
No, it's so look, I had policing background. I was in major crime, and I had a run of 18 months there. I had some infant fatalities, and I just had my own my first child myself. Yeah. and everything was fine. Like you think you can cope, you can deal with things, and there was a number of other things you're investigating along the way, and then I knew I was struggling, but I didn't speak out. I didn't seek help, and like cops like Martinus, they've got resources and things, right? But I didn't tap into them. And you touched on signs, Cutsy. Mate, I didn't see the signs coming. I just thought, this is my job, this is what I do, this is me. I'm strong, didn't want to be a sign of weakness. I remember one day my wife gave me a shopping list to go to Coles. Had about 5 or 6 items on it. And I went down to Coles and I got in there and I was in the aisle and I wigged out. I just was a basket case, and it was over a simple little task like that that just caused me to lose it, and I started spiralling out of control. I took some time off from the cops. I started drinking, making other poor lifestyle decisions. I withdrew. I remember I was living down Wollongong at the time, and in Mount Kira, where we lived. I lived on a bit of a hill, and I could see if people were coming in my drive, so I'd quickly shut blinds, and I just didn't want to talk to anyone. But eventually sought help, and this is when I'm talking about things that didn't work and worked. So the first option I went down the path of was I went to my GP, then I went to a psychiatrist. Psychiatrist wrote me a script, here you go, you'll be right. They did nothing. Did nothing. And then again, we talk about stigmas. I felt that heightened the stigma because I'm not medicated, there's nothing wrong with me. It just didn't work. But then I went and spoke with a psychologist. He's down Wollongong as well. His name's Rod Ward, and he's from a military background. And mate, something just clicked. Like I'm still mates with him to this day. I think it was just because we found that connection coming from similar backgrounds, sporting interests, things like that. So coupled with him, because I'd also withdrawn from sport. I wasn't training at the gym, although I wish I had today, sitting next to these blokes. But I withdrew from everything, and Rod sort of got me back into the exercise frame of mind, which helped tremendously. But he also said a couple of things to me, and he said, mate, the sun is always going to come up tomorrow, and when you look down 12 months' time at the person you are now, you will not believe you're one and the same person. And I'm going, mate, this bloke's on crack. I'm never coming out of this. He's insane. So that's sort of having him there, and it got to the point I was speaking with him regularly, like weekly, just going having a coffee and just the environment he created. But at this point in time, I look at it now, and I thought this is the biggest cross I bear to this date, is that I'm going through this. I was worried. I did not have a concern for anyone around me, and my wife's at home with two babies under the age of 14. And I look back, how did I put her through that? Like, it's amazing. But talking about the themes for Are You Okay? I had a mate, and I know I've spoken to you about this previously about having that person. His name's Watto. He was prepared to ask me questions that I didn't want to confront. He didn't have the answers. But he got me talking, and I still think to this day, if it wasn't for him and he sort of forcing himself on to me, that sort of is why I'm here today. Like, he just
amazing.
And he didn't do anything but listen. Like, and just challenge me and just said, well, like, you know what I mean, where you're at, and sort of pointed me into those resources that we talked about. So so it's a dark place, but like the things that worked for me were definitely the exercise and the talking to it.
Amazing.
So,
Thank you, mate. Thanks for sharing. It's, I think there's probably a lot of people out there that, might recognise the signs a little bit better now. Things like changes in behaviour or mood swings. Even sleep patterns, appetite and weight changes, lack of interest in things, decline in work performance. Just because somebody's struggling at work in their work performance, it prompts us to think maybe there's something going on for that person away from work that we need to check in on. What about you, Cutsy? You been through periods like that, mate?
I have, and it's inspiring to hear Woody talk. Because again, it's that stigma. So like, I'm not one to seek it out. I like to be the opposite. I like to be the guy that asks the tough questions and does support people. But obviously, I've long time, again, doing 4-on-1s was a tough thing for me. Missing Christmases, birthdays. We worked through multiple special events, and it didn't matter. Like, you were in there, you had to go. And there was also a bit of a culture back then where, particularly through the mining boom, where the money was great, and people thought, you're all right, you've got the money from it. Where it's not about the money, it's It's the birthdays, the Christmases and whatnot,
Exactly.
the events
there.
that you can't get back.
Yeah.
So I held a real guilt
Yeah.
over that. My boy turned 18 this year, and I looked at that, and that hit me hard
Yeah.
because I've been doing it for nearly 20 years, and he's only 18.
Yeah. Wow.
So I've missed a big chunk of his life that I can't get back. But very similar to yourself, Woody, of people that keep me honest with it and keep me accountable.
Yeah.
And I find that you can never lie to yourself. So when you're not all right, you know within yourself that you're not. And I find that's where I have the tough conversations with myself.
Yep.
I can be honest with myself, and lucky to have a good support network around me.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, again, thanks for sharing, right? So I think we've all got our stories, right? And it's important that we connect with each other on those, because I can connect to that, wholeheartedly. I did 4 years of FIFO and missed my grandma's funeral, missed birthdays, Christmases, all that kind of stuff, and it does play on you, right? So you go through those stages, but Are You OK Day in particular it's about having someone to share that with.
Yep.
So how important is it to have people to talk to, right?
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. And I think, like we've spoken about, and we've touched on it through this chat already. You don't have to have the answers.
No.
But you just need to be there, ask questions, and help support them.
Yeah. I mean, to have someone there. It's an emotional outlet.
Yeah.
Right. You feel like then you've released something. You've released that emotion.
Yeah.
Because emotion, even that word, motion, energy equals motion, right? Which way am I moving? Right? If I can release that, I'm moving forward. If I'm holding on to it, I'm probably staying still, and sometimes I'm going backwards, right? But it's also that validation and understanding. Because everyone's been through stuff, right? So you can validate someone's emotion and you can understand where they're coming from. And, having someone to talk to can also help problem solve, right?
Yeah.
You can start thinking of things. People ask you better questions or questions you don't want to confront yourself. You start to think about things a little bit differently. Yeah. What about you, Cuts, man? You got people you talk to?
Mate, you're one of them. you know it. I put it like a diet. So a lot of the negative energy around me, I don't always let in to me diet, my mental diet, basically. I've got yourself, people like Dave Van Hoos, and for me, it's not a conversation around mental health so much, but just the positive vibes that you guys throw out.
Yeah.
So if I'm having that tough day, things are building up, I'll give you a call.
Yeah.
I'll give Dave a call or Woody a call or the great people that we've got around us.
Jab right, left hook.
Correct. And I do. I'll be a bit silly
on
the phone, and we have a bit of a laugh, and it helps me breathe again and take that. It sort of grounds you. But I think, again, it's when someone's doing it, we need to recognise that as a sign that someone is ringing us for that reason. And, again, we've known each other a few years now, Boots, and when I'm calling you, mate, it's to have a little download, even if it is, right
mate,
cross,
it's
left
perfect.
hook.
It's perfect. It is.
Low kick, high kick. So that's huge to me.
Yeah.
That breaks it. That breaks the the day or the the mood at the time. Just that tiny bit of positivity grounds me.
Yep.
And I said, like people like yourselves and your Dave Van Hooses and
Yep.
guys like that. Yeah, that's my method.
And it's a privilege that you do call me, mate. I love it, right? Because we are mates, and I'll do that for anyone anyway. But two things sort of stand out for me when you say that. One is it's a stress reduction strategy right there. That is a stress reduction strategy to call someone when it starts to close in a little bit on you and you're not feeling great. I'll get on the phone to Boots or whoever it is, and you can have a laugh, release that. Okay, now I'm good to go again. The other one is social connection. So you mentioned isolation before, Cutsy, when you go away, and I've been isolated too with work, and a lot of people in our industry and in our company have to experience that. Social connection is so important as a strategy to assist with mental health. It's not even funny. I find one of the quickest spirals is being isolated. And then when you start to go down that, it is a spiral. You, like you said, Woody, you start closing the shutters up. You don't want to see people, so you make it worse, right? And it compounds and compounds, and then all of a sudden you're in a crisis situation. You don't even know how you got there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about strategies. Like, how do you build? So this episode is called Building Mental Health.
Yep.
Or building mental health, right? What are some of the things you guys do besides your phone calls? What do you do to build mental health? I'll give you an example, right? I have to focus on my physical fitness.
Yeah.
Okay? For me, that is a psychological well-being thing. It's not a physical well-being thing. Having a balanced diet,
Yeah.
ensuring I've got adequate sleep, those sort of physical aspects.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Yeah.
Mine's definitely fitness as well, Boots.
Yeah.
You know that. Like the gym to me ain't about, the muscles or anything else. What it is, it's I do it at the end of the day. So I'm basically done. I find once I've done it, a good hour of physical exercise, 3 bottles of water, I've rehydrated, my head's clear again, I can attack the emails.
Yeah.
I can confidently answer them emails through physical fitness and, again, the phone calls.
Yeah.
That's what I do. I travel a fair distance each day,
Yeah.
and I won't answer the work calls for that travel. I'll make some personal calls to good, positive people, and then, train. I'm ready to go again.
Are you, Woody?
Yeah, mate. Exercise is definitely the fundamental. But for me, and again, like we talk about, we all know how blessed we are to work for Martinus, right? It's just something different. We're lucky. Tapping into that work-life balance, like having time with your family. For me, it's like on the weekends, the kids' sport, like getting around, being able to in a position to coach and spend time with them, taking the kids down the beach, just having that, turn the phone off, and just having that pure, I guess you call it, presence with the kids, and there's no other distractions, and so that's a big thing for me. But yeah, the exercise definitely. There was something you said before, Craig. I just wanted to touch back into. I think it's important when we're talking about signs and symptoms, like when we look try and flag things externally with others. I think you've got to have honesty with yourself. From my experience, I had these things going on. I thought I'm all right, and then the thing that tipped me over, I'm thinking, looking back, how the hell could that tip me over? But it was explained to me because that question, like I had that question floating in my head for a long time. So you got a cup and then drop, and there's a drop, and there's a drop, and then that last drop might be so minor in what it is.
Over.
Yeah, and it's what tips the cup over. So I think it's having that honesty internally as well to be able to recognise that early as opposed to getting to that point.
Well, it leads back to what Cutsy said. As soon as he starts to feel like it's closing in a bit, he gets on the phone to some people that can help him, and that means something. I mean, at the end of the day, there's lots of things that you can employ as a strategy, but even setting and achieving goals, that sense of achievement, right? So what are you doing in life away from work as well? Because it's not all about setting and achieving work goals. What are we doing to set and achieve life goals? Learning about resilience and how to cultivate resilience. Go and do some reading on emotional intelligence and building resilience and how do you bounce back from certain situations. Pursue a passion. There's meditation, mindfulness, yoga. I was reading a book. Actually, it's the Titans book by... he does all the podcasts. I'll think of it later. But he talks, every high achiever that he interviewed, they had one thing in common, and that was they all practiced meditation.
Yeah, right.
Meditation and mindfulness every day. That was one thing that he said that they all did that set them apart from everybody else, was practicing that mindfulness and meditation, and whether that was sitting still and focusing on deep breathing or practicing mindfulness while you're washing up the dishes. And that didn't matter how you did it, but that was one activity that he said was a standout. And I'll get the name of that book and I'll get it out to everyone as well. The guy.
I like that, Boots. I like the mindfulness side of that. So actually letting thoughts go as well, not holding on to them too long. I don't think that's healthy for anyone.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's the listening thing that you're talking about here as well.
Yeah.
Being willing to listen, it actually puts a perspective on things. Often find myself with a rough day, I'll get a little reminder of just how blessed I am, and that it's only a day of work.
Yeah.
And that let it go. Again, sun comes up tomorrow, Woody.
Yeah.
I find that's a big one. I downloaded my partner a lot
Yeah.
in the afternoons, and she listens.
Yeah.
And I find that once it's out, it's actually out, and I don't hold on to it. I can come back and...
That's a great skill, because a lot of people hold on to it, even myself included, conversations and stuff. You ruminate things, and Mate, sitting next to the king of it, Woody. But how do you then let go of that? And that again, like we said, is Are You Okay Day. It's having somebody that you can talk to, right? That's the start. So, Are You Okay Day? What about tips? Tips to asking someone if you're okay, right? So there's a few things that you can do because it's not rocket science. Number one is you need to be open to what they are going to say to you. So be present, right? The whole theme this year is I'm here to hear. So this whole thing around what you call connective listening. So believe it or not, there's actually 4 levels of listening. Connective listening is the last level to master. And that's where you don't actually offer a solution. It's literally just to acknowledge anything that they're going through and make them feel like they're being heard because you are listening, right? Acknowledge and validate, actually validate anything, any emotion that's coming up for them. Acknowledge the position they're in. That's all you need to do. Be non-judgmental, right? Never judge. I don't do that anyway. Done enough shit myself. And then if need be, encourage them to seek help, all right? Because there are things that are way above anything that we can do. And if it's something that may be a bit more serious, then professional help is what the direction they need to be sent in. And then check in with them after that. Right? So follow it up. That's not the end of it, just because you've listened once to somebody.
Yeah. I think too, Craig, just flowing on that, you've touched on it as well. Don't tick a box, just are you okay if you're not prepared to have that chat.
Yeah.
Because that can often do more harm than good.
Yep.
So make sure you're prepared to go that next step.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you know what? Maybe some people don't want to listen either, right?
Yeah.
So that's okay, but make sure that if somebody does come to you and you're not in a space to listen yourself, that you go and maybe get somebody else involved or whatever it is. Don't just leave that person. Any comments on that one, Cutsy?
No, I'm good.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good with
Well,
that.
look, I'm not going to drag on the podcast because I'm hoping everyone listens to this all the way through, because this brings us to the end of our first ever episode, Building Minds. If you are struggling right now, or if this podcast has brought anything up for you, we are here to listen. We also do have our EAP at Martinus, and those details are on our intranet page. But there are also services like Lifeline that are 24/7 that you can reach out to by calling 131114. So if you do need to do that, that's the number, 131114 with Lifeline. And remember, at Martinus, part of our culture, a big part of our culture is having each other's back. So get out there, start asking your mates, your friends, your colleagues, how they're going. Be prepared to genuinely listen, show you care, and look out for each other.
I love it, Boots. Yeah, just touch on that as well, that I want people in the industry to know they can ring.
Perfect.
Yep, that's what I'm here for.
Good on you, Cutsy.
Yeah.
Thanks, Woody.
Thanks, mate.
We're
Cheers,
out.
guys.
Done.